Ezekiel, chapter 8. And it came to be in the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th of the new moon, about a year and a half-ish since Ezekiel began his ministry, as I sat in my house with the elders of Judah sitting before me, that the hand of the master Yahweh fell upon me there. So he's in his house. He's got the elders of Judah. Why? Because they're in exile. There's no temple for them to go meet at. No small groups with the church. They're in Ezekiel's house. Well, wait a minute. I thought he was lying on his side, right? 390 days on one side, 40 days on the other side, a day for a year. Depending on who you ask, this is either in between the 390 and the 40, or after the 390 and the 40. So he's sitting in his house. He's got all these elders of Yehuda, of Judah there, sitting before him, that the hand of the master Yahweh fell upon me there. And I looked, and I saw a likeness like the appearance of fire. From his, Yahweh's waist and downward, the appearance was like fire. And from his waist and upward, the appearance of brightness like glowing metal. And he, Yahweh, stretched out the form of a hand and took me by the lock of my hair. And the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heavens and brought me in visions of Elohim to Jerusalem, to the door of the north gate of the inner court, where the seat of the image of jealousy was, which causes jealousy. So Ezekiel's sitting in his house with the elders, and the Father stretches out his hand, grabs him by a lock of hair, and yanks him up out of his body. He has this vision of Jerusalem, which they have left, right? It's under Babylonian captivity at this point. And see, the esteem of the Elohim of Israel was there, like the vision that I saw in the plain. And he said to me, Son of man, please lift your eyes towards the north. And I lifted my eyes northward, and north of the slaughter place I saw this image of jealousy in the entrance. And he, Yahweh, said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing, the great abominations which the house of Israel are doing here, driving me away from my set-apart place? And you are to see still greater abominations. So the Father's given Ezekiel this vision, this image, to see inside of the temple these abominations that the house of Judah is doing. It's interesting to me in that the temple is now in our heart, right? The secret things, the inward things that we do, that we think, or the thoughts that we think, or the feelings that we have that we think nobody will ever see, Yah still sees it. And here in Ezekiel seeing the house of Israel doing these abominations, worshiping false gods, doing all the things that the Father told them not to do, doing them in secret inside of his temple, which of course pisses Yah off. But again, if we think about our temple, right now the temple is here inside of our heart. What are we harboring inside of here? What falsehoods are we worshiping inside of here? As if nobody sees it, right? And for Ezekiel, if you think about in context here, this provides support, understanding, clarity for why did the children of Israel, why did the Yehudim have to go into captivity? Well, it's one thing to believe that, yeah, they were doing abominations, and therefore the Father was like, nope, not in my house, literally. But it's another thing to see it with your own eyes, to understand, to really understand, look, this is what they are doing. Because remember, Ezekiel didn't begin his ministry until they were already in the captivity. And he, Yahweh, said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing, the great abominations which the house of Israel are doing here, driving me away from my set-apart place? And you are to see still greater abominations. Then he brought me to the door of the court, and I looked and I saw a hole in the wall. And he said to me, Son of man, please dig into the wall. And when I dug into the wall, I saw a door. And he said to me, go in and see the evil abominations which they are doing there. And I went in and I looked, and I saw all kinds of creeping creatures, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel, carved all around the walls. And facing them stood 70 men of the elders of the house of Israel, the Sanhedrin, the 70. And in their midst stood Yahweh, son of Shaphan. Each one had a censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. So think about the imagery here. The 70 men, the Sanhedrin, the council of elders, are inside of this temple. They're surrounded by these creeping creatures and abominable beasts, the things that we're told in Leviticus 11 are unclean. And they're worshiping these false idols. Each has a censer in their hand. They're bringing an offering of incense to these false idols. Just like Yah smote Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Abihu, right? Because they brought the wrong incense to the temple. Well, the Father consumed them with fire immediately. It's like these elders of Israel forgot that story, right? Because here they are in the midst of the house worshiping these abominations. In Yah's house, worshiping these abominations. And he, Yahweh, said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the dark, each one in the room of his idols? For they say, Yahweh does not see us. Yahweh has forsaken the land. And he, Yahweh, said to me, you are to see still greater abominations which they are doing. And he brought me to the door of the north gate of the house of Yahweh, and I saw women sitting there weeping for Tammuz. Phoenician false god? False worship, weeping for Tammuz. If you're a son or a daughter of Israel, why do you care one iota about Tammuz? And then he said to me, have you seen this, O son of man? You are to see still greater abominations than these. So this false worship is an abomination to the Father. If you worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and you are not doing what he told you to do, you're doing what you told him to do, even inside of his house, your church, you're worshiping falsely, he hates that. These are abominations to him. And the difference between sin and abomination, sin, 1 John 3 verse 4, sin is transgression of the law. Abominations, Deuteronomy 32, provoke the Father against you. So like you pissed dad off so much that he's now working against you. Sin, according to the prophet Isaiah, creates a separation between you and Yah. Abominations, according to Moshe in Deuteronomy, provokes the Father against you. That is a bad place to be. And he, Yahweh, brought me into the inner court of the house of Yahweh, and there, at the door of the Hekal of Yahweh, the temple, between the porch and the slaughter place, were about 25 men with their backs towards the Hekal of Yahweh, and their faces towards the east, and they were bowing themselves eastward to the sun. Sunday morning sunrise worship, brother. This is an abomination, according to Yah in the book of Ezekiel. Their backs are to the temple. They've turned their back on the temple, and they're bowing down and facing east towards the sun to worship. And he, Yahweh, said to me, have you seen, O son of man, is it a small matter to the house of Judah to do the abominations which they have done here? For they have filled the land with violence and turned back to provoke me. Abominations provoke the Father. And see, they are putting the branch to my nose. This branch to my nose, this is a euphemism for pagan idolatry worship. They're putting the branch to Yah's nose. They're worshiping him falsely. Therefore I shall indeed deal in wrath. My eye shall not pardon, nor would I spare. And they shall cry in my ears with a loud voice, but I shall not hear them. We know from the book of Proverbs. And it's a serious implication. It's sickening to think about. That the Father does not hear the prayers of the unrighteous. Well, here it is again in Ezekiel 8. Therefore I shall indeed deal in wrath. My eye shall not pardon, nor would I spare, and they shall cry in my ears with a loud voice, but I shall not hear them. That's a bad place to be. It goes back to Isaiah. Your sins have created a separation between you and Yah. So you want the Father to hear you, stop sinning. Or to sin. Sin is lawlessness, 1 John 3, verse 4. And I know, like, some of y'all are going to make your works-based theology comments and blah, blah, blah. Read the Bible, man. Behold, I come swiftly to reward each man according to his works. Yeshua in Revelation 22. Jacob, James. You say you have faith, I will show you my faith by my works. It doesn't matter what you think in your head. It doesn't matter what you say you believe with your mouth. It matters what you do. What you do matters. Why are we instructed to be fruit inspectors? Because the fruits of your actions are what matters. What did you do? And so if you're doing sin, if you're doing abomination, stop, teshuvah, turn from your wicked ways, turn back to Yah. And then cry out for forgiveness. Nine. And he, Yahweh, called out in my hearing with a loud voice, saying, let the punishers of the city draw near, each with his weapon of destruction in his hand. This is a cool, intense chapter, man. And look, 6 men came from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, each with his battle axe in his hand. And one man in their midst was clothed with linen, and had a writer's inkhorn at his side. And they came in and stood beside the bronze slaughter place. Battle axe, Jeremiah 51. So 7 guys, 6 with battle axes, 1 in white linen with an inkhorn, standing beside the bronze slaughter place. This is where offerings are made unto Yah. Sin cannot be in the presence of Yah. So these men are clean. They're in the presence of Yah. And the esteem, the glory of Elohim of Israel went up from the cherubim where it had been to the threshold of the house. So from above the lid of atonement on the Ark of the Covenant, the cherubim goes up from there where it had been and moves to the threshold of the house, the steps going into the temple. And he, Yahweh, called to the man clothed with linen, who had the writer's inkhorn at his side. And Yahweh said to him, pass on into the midst of the city, into the midst of Jerusalem, and you shall put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and cry over all the abominations that are done within it. Put a mark on the foreheads of men. Where have we seen that before? It's the mark of the beast, bear. We'll read Revelation chapter 7. The Father seals his people in the forehead first. So what's happening here? Pass on into the midst of the city, into the midst of Jerusalem, and you, the man in white linen with inkhorn, shall put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and cry over all the abominations that are done within it. Those who are crying out about the abominations that are happening in Jerusalem. Remember with Sodom and Gomorrah? Why did the Father come down? To inspect because of the cries of the righteous men in Sodom. So here we see the Father in Jerusalem saying, everybody who's crying out about these abominations in Jerusalem, you go mark them in the forehead. And verse 5, and to the others, he, Yahweh, said in my hearing, pass on into the city after him, after the man in white linen, and strike. Do not let your eye pardon, nor spare. Kill to destruction old, young men, maidens, and children, and women, but do not come near anyone upon whom is the mark, and begin at my set apart place. So these ones that have been marked in the forehead, sealed by Yah on the forehead, just like what we see in Revelation 7, the Father seals his people first, so that when destruction comes about, the angels, if you will, those with the battle axes, know who to not kill, because they've been marked in the forehead by Yah. And people run on and on in the mouth about the mark of the beast. Well, the enemy's a copycat. Satan's a liar. He doesn't have any new ideas. He just perverts the ideas of Yah. The mark of the beast doesn't come until after the Father seals his people in the forehead. Revelation 7. And so here we see this imagery. This man in the white linen with this inkhorn is going throughout Jerusalem and marking Yah's people, those that cried out about the abominations, that are not okay with what's happening in Jerusalem. And then the six with the battle axe say to, or that Yah says to the six with the battle axe, go through and slaughter everybody that hasn't been marked, that hasn't been sealed in the forehead with my mark. Kill to destruction old, young men, maidens, and children and women, but do not come near anyone upon whom is the mark. And begin at my set apart place. Start here in the temple. So they began with the elders who were in front of the house. They began with these 70 men of the elders of the house of Israel, 8 verse 11. In their presence is the Yazan-Yahu, son of Shaphan. Each one had a censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. False worship. You begin here. Cleanse my house first. And he said to them, the six with the axes, defile the house and fill the courts with the slain. This temple. What do you mean defile the house? There's not to be any bloodshed in the temple. The temple's already defiled. It's filled with false worship. These 70 men, these elders, defiled it before the blood was shed. Defile the house and fill the courts with the slain. Go out. And they went out and struck in the city. And as they were striking them, it came to be that I was left alone. And I fell on my face and cried out and said, Ah, Master Yahweh, are you destroying all the remnant of Israel and pouring out your wrath on Jerusalem? Remember, Ezekiel's having this vision while he's in his house, sitting with the elders of the remnant that have been exiled. And he, Yahweh, said to me, the crookedness of the house of Israel and Judah is exceedingly great, and the land is filled with bloodshed, and the city filled with that which is warped. For they say Yahweh has forsaken the land, and Yahweh is not seeing. But as for me, my eye shall not pardon, nor would I spare. I shall recompense their deeds on their own head. Behold, I come swiftly to reward each man according to his works. I shall recompense their deeds on their own head. And see, the man clothed with linen, who had the inkhorn at his side, reported back and said, I have done as you have commanded me. We'll save 10 for next week because we've got some 10 imagery that goes all the way back to Ezekiel chapter 1 with the wheels again. If your temple is filled with false worship, get your house in order. Teshuvah, repent, turn from your wicked ways, and then cry out and beg for forgiveness, mercy, grace. Shall we sin all the more so that grace may abound? No, Yah forbid. Do not be caught in false worship. No man knows the day or the hour. We don't know when the reaping and the threshing is to occur. And I don't know if we'll be here for millennia more waiting on the return of Yeshua. But man, does it feel at times that the days are short. And forget the end of the world. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. There's no guarantee that you wake up tomorrow. That is an assumption. And so knowing that every day that you wake up is a gift from Yah, if your house isn't in order, if your temple's defiled, get it straight. Because no man knows the day or the hour. Bless y'all. Shalom.